I want to welcome you back to Enemy of My Truth. I'm so excited and honored to introduce on the podcast today these four incredible men: Josh Verrill, Ross Androchuk, Chase Rosa, and Chris DiSotto. Each of them brings something powerful, grounded, and deeply needed to the conversation. And this episode is especially close to my heart because it began with a deep inner knowing. Through my work with each of these men individually, I felt a clear pull that they needed to meet, that there was something much more powerful waiting to be created if they came together. And that's exactly what happened. What started as intuitive nudges and shared energy has become a real grounded space for connection, conversation, and deep transformation. They've come together with a shared desire to create space for men, space that holds truth, depth, vulnerability, and real conversation, from spirituality to personal struggles, from healing to inner philosophy. This is a community that doesn't just talk, it listens, it grows, it holds. Some of you may remember Josh Verrill from our solo episode not long ago, and I'm excited to reconnect and expand that conversation. And it's a full circle moment to welcome Chase Rosa. I was a guest on his podcast, The Driving Force, a few years back, and now I'm honored to have him here sharing with this audience. I'm genuinely honored and inspired by the energy each of these men brings through their own lived experiences, their willingness to go deep, and their presence in this shared space. Each voice is essential. Each perspective is medicine. You can find them all on Instagram, LinkedIn, and through their website, The Conversation, linked in the show notes. And personally, I'm beyond grateful to be co-creating with Josh, Ross, Chase, and Chris as this journey continues to unfold over the coming months and years. This is just the beginning of something much bigger and so special. And I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. I want to begin and welcome the first guest here together in the conversation that we are holding for everyone collectively and for ourselves. And I want to start with Josh Verrill. Josh, so wonderful to have you on the podcast and to be here, and love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what brings you here.
Thank you, Anne. So I will start that it's great to be back. I know we've had a chance earlier to talk, and that conversation was great, and I'm looking forward to this one. So for those that don't know me, my name is Josh Verrill. I'm 41 years old. I'm a proud father of two kids. My favorite name to be called is Dad. I have a 10-year-old girl and an 8-year-old son. I enjoy coaching, playing any type of sport that they like to play, and any amount of time on the water that we can find together. I'm a happy dad. On the professional side, I work in marketing. I've worked for software companies over the last 15 years, from everything from corporate all the way through starting my own business, and the trials and tribulations that comes with raising money and starting a business and trying to sort of keep it together and grow it. Currently, I work at a company called AMCS Group out of Ireland with a location in Boston, and I run the North America marketing team. And I have a lot of fun in my career thinking about how I take the marketing aspect of what I do and bring that together with consumer behavior and connecting with people. That's a really important part of what I do on a day-to-day basis. For me, my life has gone through a considerable amount of change over the last many years, and I have you to thank for that. Certainly, we came together 4 or 5 years ago, and I'd always felt that there was something more. I'd always felt that I was starting to think more about who I was and where I fit and the things that I wanted to do in life, but I didn't exactly know how to ascertain and ultimately get to those things. So we came together for a manifestation class, and it set my life on an incredible path um, that has led me to where I am today.
Thank you for kind of giving us an introduction to who you are, Josh, and feeling that transformation that you have been through and this metamorphosis of sorts of who you were, say, even a year ago versus who you are today. And as you kind of shared a little bit about that and what I've noticed on your journey and our work together, and I'm so grateful that our paths crossed and watching you step into your truth of where you are in your life today, it's not always easy. There's a lot of pain. And sometimes it's a lot easier to not step into that pain and just stay comfortable. And I find that there's that inner fire within us that just refuses to be silent. And I guess I would ask you right now in this space and what you've come to know about yourself today. And I think that we're constantly learning and growing. And tomorrow we have the option and the permission to change and to think differently and how that shows up. But how do you feel as though the journey in the last few years for you has changed you now? How has that motivated you to perhaps share your story with others?
That's a great question, Anne. And I would say there's probably a lot of people in my life who look at me today and they say they don't know who I am anymore because of the way that I've evolved and changed. And I think from my own perspective, I would say that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing. Um, there were a lot of things that I needed to take the time to understand about myself and who I was and why I was operating in a certain way. Um, and as I started to realize those things, I started to see more and more that I was living my life for other people as opposed to living my life for myself and trying to be the best me for everyone else, versus trying to help them be better in order to be a better me, if that makes any sense. So it was a long process and it was a lot of work of digging in and looking at the pattern behaviors of how I responded and who I was, and then ultimately recognizing some of the changes that I had to go through. And it's meant a lot of change on the personal side for me. It's meant some change on the professional side, and I think it's become a lot of it has been about trusting in myself and listening to my own inner voice, and truly starting to recognize that I have some of those answers. I just I have to trust in them. I have to believe in them. And I have to, most of all for me, I have to know that not everyone is going to like them, and I can't do them for other people. I have to do them for me. And if I'm doing them for me, then I'm moving forward in an authentic way. And with that, I can feel proud of, and confident in the decisions that I'm making, even if they're hard changes. And I think that has allowed me to move forward sort of day by day. Sometimes one step forward, two steps back, but it's allowed me to step in a whole new presence of who I am and I'm slowly becoming with this evolution.
I can I can really feel and see that in you, Josh. And I have a question that I'm just thinking about. How hard has it been to trust yourself? How hard has it been to trust the process and really meaning trusting you?
Yeah, that's fine. It's a great question. Because I hadn't thought about it that way in terms of how hard it has been. Incredibly hard. It's been maybe the toughest part of this challenge because there are moments where you want to slip back into, well, what listen to what others are saying and allow that to affect you, and it forces you to question yourself. I was just recently was sort of sitting just thinking, and I had this thought come to my mind where it was like, and I mean this for everybody else as much for myself, but you are not what other people say you are. And that for me is a powerful reminder that I have that runs through my head because it brings me back to that place of trust, and away from letting what other people are saying sort of guide or make me think that I'm something that I am not. And it is a daily routine. it's a daily routine of listening to your inner voice and sort of understanding what tone it's taking and having to take control of it and not letting it go to that place of questioning yourself, not letting it go to that place of mistrust of yourself. And I'll admit there are some days that I am better at it than others. Um, and it's the really good days when I'm in a really good place is the days that I'm in full trust of sort of the decisions that I'm making, the changes that I'm making, and the why behind those. Again, back to authenticity for me. And that's where I find that trust. But yeah, it's a great question and it's been really difficult. Um, no doubt.
Yeah, and that's honest, right, for all of us. Because a lot of times when we trust ourselves, we end up perhaps disappointing somebody else. And so we have to really weigh out, are we trusting ourselves or are we putting the energy into making sure somebody else is comfortable? And I think every day it's something that we have to walk. And I've noticed it with you, Josh, in your journey and the sense of integrity and vulnerability that you show to constantly know that you can come home to your truth and to know that it's not always easy to identify. And I think to any one of us, it's constantly going to challenge us. But when truth shows up, doesn't it just feel right? It feels it's with out resistance. And sometimes I feel that when the truth feels so right, there's a sense of guilt because it does feel so good and so right. And we're so conditioned to struggle through life, to sacrifice, to feel though, unless we're suffering, we're not really doing the work. When in fact, couldn't it be that the work includes having ease and peace in our life to create what we want and who we are? Josh, I wanted to ask you, and thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you two more things as we go around the group. What other influences do you feel have shaped, who and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of influences in my life, and I think for me, it's been a couple of people close to me who have been willing to just listen and allow me to explore, a new side of who I am. Relationships that allowed me to be vulnerable in ways that I had never felt compelled to be open and honest about things that have happened to me over the course of my life. And I think that's that trust factor. And I had it in an incredible friend who's become a partner. And it was just it was that feeling of utter trust that allowed me to step into a whole new version of myself. And I know that for some people who have that, they can probably feel, and you talked about how in sync that feels. And for me, I'm a golfer, and there's just sometimes every once in a while you'll swing, and it's just that perfect swing, and that's what that trust feels like. And when you have it, and you can open up and you can release it, it's like there's a step factor of how quickly you can evolve once you're able to say it and express it and have that conversation. And the reaction is one of, again, it comes with trust, it comes with love, and it comes with just understanding and appreciation for the person that you are and whatever it is that you're talking about and how it's helped you become who you are.
Hmm.
So I think those personal relationships are so very important, um, that have sort of helped me evolve into into what I am. And then there's other relationships that help you see who you are and how you want to evolve and be a little bit different. And that can be that comes in a number of different factors. And I think I've seen that in folks who I've been close to, and this can be both professional and personal, where you can see it and you say, okay, I could see myself going in that direction and recognize that. And then how do I alter course? How do I find my strength? How do I do differently? And in that comes power as well.
Hmm. I love that. And hearing the various places and the connections that you have found along your path to allow you to see yourself. This just popped into my head. I'm going to ask the group this, but before I have my last question for you, Josh, what does it feel like when you trust yourself? What does that really feel like? Could you give an emotion or a description of how that feels when you are trusting yourself?
Hmm, it's a great question, Anne. I wonder if anybody's ever been asked like that because I know what it feels like when you ask me that question, right? I sort of get this feeling of warmth, this feeling, I don't know, my shoulders relaxed. There was this feeling of comfort in it, that comes with it. I'm trying to come up with an analogy, and I don't think I'll be able to in the moment, but I think there's just this, I don't know, it's almost like it's like looking at a lake or an ocean that's just completely reflective and flat, right? It's just at peace, it's at harmony, and it feels like you can take on the world when you have that complete and utter trust. It's a really, really unique, powerful feeling.
Mhm. And I can
It,
imagine.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I should say, and it comes with a sense of joy and happiness too, because you know that you're sort of in that moment. Yeah.
Oh, well, I love your description. I can really feel that because the next thing that I think about when you shared that with us is that ripple effect, that joy and that abundance has on those that are around you and what you're creating. So, as you just described the sense of freedom, like, isn't that what we're all striving for? Freedom in our choices and our decisions and our life experiences, especially in our work with our family and with our life partners. And so, thanks for answering that because it was really, I could feel that whole description and you going there and actually putting yourself in that place. And it's powerful. Josh, lastly, what advice would you give someone not sure what direction to take in their life or knowing how to trust themselves? And maybe it's your 20-year-old self. But do you have any advice that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think especially when you're younger, right? At 20, I knew it all. And the way I went about it was I always had my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan, right? Like I was always operating in the future, and I never really took moments to pause and look at the present and be honest with the present, because I was always, 2 to 5 years ahead, living in whatever that might feel like. So slow down time, take stock on the present, and allow yourself to feel, and then allow yourself to converse, allow yourself to talk with folks and have a conversation, and it might take talking to a number of different people, but find someone who you can just open up to, and then listen to yourself as you talk, because I think you're going to get opinions from everybody. Everyone's going to hear it differently. No one knows your story like you do, because you've been inside your head living it. So listen to yourself as you say it, and then just be willing to at first listen and then adapt when you're ready to adapt and change. Doesn't have to be, don't let it become so big. Just take a baby step and listen. Um, and who knows what can become of it. But at that point, you'll be connected to yourself, and that is really powerful in and of itself.
Hmm. I love that, Josh. And I love the whole essence around listening because if we're listening, we're actually tuning into that voice or that energy inside of us that says trust. So you can't trust without listening and taking time to actually listen to yourself and what it is that you need. Um, Really, really great stuff, Josh. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing a bit of yourself with everyone and your story and just being here with us. It means a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Okay. I would love to next introduce Chase Rosa to the podcast. And Chase, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. And thanks, first of all, for putting this together. I dusted off the old podcast mic for this, so I was very excited to jump on. And thanks, Josh, for all that you said. Really powerful stuff. And while you were talking, it actually reminded me of this quote I heard that I felt like I wanted to share, which is like our journey as humans is to break free from the constraints from which we arrived here on this earth. And I think for you, when you were talking about, these people-pleasing tendencies that you kind of had early on and throughout your life and trying to grow through those, into like the person you want to be and the person that you eventually like want to become, is, super powerful. I can already see you, spreading your own wings and becoming kind of your true essence. So, yeah, really, really great. But yeah, Chase Rosa, I'm 30 years old professionally. I currently work at a private wealth management firm, as a client service associate. And I've always kind of worked within the financial industry. But also a handful of years ago, I started a podcast, called the Driving Force Podcast, where I interviewed essentially high performing individuals across sports, business, and wellness, really getting to the root of what drives them, how they got to where they are today, which is a really interesting experience and project. I've always been someone who's been very curious about human performance, personal development, self-growth, and all that sort of stuff. Something I'm very passionate about talking about. Outside of work, I'm also a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've done martial arts for many years. It's a big part of who I am and kind of my own sort of philosophy, and outlook on life. I'm also a former college tennis player. So yeah.
Chase, when I hear you and I hear the things that you've created and our connection together and what brought our paths together is not only the work with the spiritual guidance that you and I have done, but it's also coming on your podcast and really starting to see behind the curtain the things that drive and motivate you. And I love the name of your podcast, The Driving Force. And so I guess my question for you, Chase, is what is the driving force or the importance of spiritual guidance? How has that impacted and been a factor on your journey and your path and bringing you to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So, and maybe I'll start this off with with how you and I first got connected, which had nothing to do with career or athletics or anything like that. It actually had to do with a romantic relationship that ended. Which at the time was very significant to me. It was a short term, but also very passionate relationship that just ended abruptly. And I was kind of confused about the way it ended, didn't know how to move forward, and heal from it, and just kind of seeking answers every which way. And my mom, who had worked with Anne, was the one who actually suggested I book a session with her. And my mom had previously shared some crazy, how could she possibly know that kind of stories with her sessions she had. So that helped sway me to start working with Anne. And it, the short of it was that it was awesome. And was able to so easily connect me with my own intuition and own kind of inner knowing, kind of the answers that I sort of had deep down, but couldn't really trust. Kind of going back to that trust that Josh was speaking to and trusting yourself. But also on her part, being able to verbalize it in a way that was very healing to me and that I could really resonate with. It was like therapy plus life coaching session combo on steroids. And, ever since then, I've really kind of dug my foot into the ground on this kind of spiritual path, exploring topics like astrology and, exploring Reiki and kind of more esoteric principles and that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, Chase, I love hearing your story with this and your perspective of coming to work together. And I think one of the things that's important to me in the work that I do and the work that you and I have done together is I want you to feel seen, and I want you to know that I see you. But more importantly, I want you to see yourself. And perhaps that's why bringing all of you together, that you have a space to really see one another, right? And yes, I can hold space for each of you, but that collective thought, that masculine energy and that voice that so much just wants to speak and to share. And what I've watched in your journey is how much you've utilized all the modalities and the practices you have learned and have come upon your path, and how you have taken those to trust yourself, right? This all comes back to trust and where that trust has led you today. And also, Chase, listening to you and the voice you hold for others in the space of your knowledge and your compassion to share that is just incredibly inspiring. And I'm just as honored to know you, Chase, and the work you do and the work you've done, and just really grateful to witness your journey and what you're doing right now with it. I guess I would ask you, what other influences, shaped your journey where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I would go back to the athletics and martial arts background that I mentioned quickly before. It's really played a major role in shaping kind of who I am and where I am today. I've trained karate, Wing Chun, Kung Fu, and most recently jujitsu for 6 years. And for those of you familiar with martial arts, there's a very kind of deep philosophy and discipline woven into practicing these martial arts, whether that's respect for yourself and your opponent, discipline, humility, integrity, the mind-body connection, which is, huge, especially if you're delving into the more spiritual side, mind, body, soul, that and all that, and then incorporating Zen philosophy and meditation. So it's been a big part of my life daily since high school, meditating pretty much every day since high school, and building more self-awareness, and kind of with that, and like you were saying, more self-trust. Still a lot I have to work on in terms of trusting myself and speaking my truth. Even being on this podcast and creating my own podcast was a very big moment of growth for me. This is not easy for me to do for everyone listening. So yeah. And then as well as my tennis background, playing in college, staying present, focusing, point to point, not worrying about too much what's going to happen in the future, not worrying about the score, has also translated well into work and staying calm and focused when things get busy and other aspects of life. So, yeah.
Well, it seems like there's a parallel and an energy to trusting your athletic ability and trusting your skill and also trusting your strength. And it's not like you can put all your strength in a scale and like measure it, or say, hey, look at my tennis game. Yes, the points and the direction of what we're doing can show you that, but it comes from within you, Chase, right? Like it's coming from something that isn't necessarily something we can quantify, but it's also bringing us back once again, to trust. Like you trusted yourself and you push yourself beyond that area of feeling comfortable. And I think with any of this work, this spiritual growth that we have, and whatever that looks like for each of us, we are having to step into something that is a bit of the unknown, and knowing that that's where we find growth and that's where we move the needle. And it can be really scary and just not knowing it. But it sounds like you really began that practice, Chase, around the athletic ability and the sports that you kind of stepped into to kind of create that discipline, and how you begin to trust yourself, which is incredible. What I want to ask you is, the same question that I asked Josh, but how does it feel to truly trust yourself? Is there anything you could describe to the audience or on your journey of what it means to really trust yourself when you're in that space, Chase?
Yeah. I think for me, what first comes to mind is just like hugging a loved one, and just kind of that warm, loving embrace. But it's you're hugging yourself, and you're kind of trusting yourself. It's very grounded feeling as well. Just feeling connected to yourself. You're not too wound up, not too excited, about whatever it is. It's a positive feeling, but you're not too excited. So I think that's really what it feels like for me.
I can really feel that. And again, it goes down to the energy of, as you just shared that, like there's ease with it, right? It feels aligned and there isn't the resistance. I always say whenever we're dealing with resistance, then we need to get a bit curious because usually where there's resistance, we're forcing an outcome or we're forcing an answer when we're just not ready. And I find that when we trust what's going on in the present moment, there's a great deal of ease with a decision or an answer. And again, sometimes we're just not used to that ease when it comes in, but we can start to pay attention to that more. So lastly, Chase, what advice would you give someone not sure what direction to take in their life or knowing how to trust themselves and where they are? And go back to your, 20-year-old self. But what advice would you give that's important to you?
Yeah. To my 20-year-old self, I was only 10 years ago. And honestly, I'm not sure that personal growth and spiritual development is really top of mind. I think it was more so partying and trying to win tennis matches. But regardless of that, being serious here, I would say, just seek help. You can't, it's really tough and can't be on this journey alone. I've tried to figure this out all and tough decisions out on my own and trying to heal. And you're just add kind of to your own misery and suffering. So, seek help, reach out to that smart, wise friend that you have, and get their perspective on whatever it may be. And depending on your situation, maybe there are like support groups out there, that you can look into and maybe join that are in your area or online. And I think maybe the last thing, a very helpful exercise that I've found, is just asking yourself the question: if I'm 100 years old, look back on my life, would I regret taking or not taking this next step in whatever direction this is, or this route? I think that can be very powerful and at least nudging you to at least take the tiny step in the direction that kind of feels good. Maybe deep down, maybe it's not a strong feeling, but I would just say follow that.
I really love that, Chase, because that provokes the question of, would I regret or not regret? This really brings you back to your center of trust, your truth, right? And really feeling that. And what a great thing to ask yourself and really sit in that question for yourself. And you're doing that. And it's bold and it's brave. And sometimes we don't have the answer right away. And you said something there too, Chase, that made me think of the fact that sometimes we feel like we have to go to our family or our partner to get the help or to get guidance. And sometimes the best guidance will be outside of our close circle. Sometimes we cannot go to our family. Sometimes we cannot go to our partner. Sometimes we need to seek those individuals outside of our immediate circles, and that's okay. Because a lot of times where we have our pain originates from the root systems of our families, perhaps in our relationships currently. So seek the people that feel that allow you to have ease, and little resistance. And that's usually the right direction to go in. Chase, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for sharing with us and just being a part of this conversation. And I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Ann.
All right. Chris DiSotto, welcome.
Hi, Ann. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so glad that you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Well, this is exciting to have all four of us together with you. It's been a journey that we've taken here over the last few months, and it's been exciting. So this is great to be a part of this with you today. So a little bit about me. My name is Chris DiSotto. I am 46 years old, almost 47. I'm a dad. I have two children. I have a 14-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter who are the light of my life, really. I can echo what Josh said when, being a dad is probably the best name I could ever be called. I spend a tremendous amount of time coaching their various sports and doing carpools. Professionally, I'm an entrepreneur. I have been since I was 14 and had a number of businesses, some successful, some not so successful, but I've learned all along the way from the ups and downs. Presently, I own a funeral supply company. My life has been sort of extraordinary in a lot of ways, and I never really took time to appreciate that. But as I'm in this process and part of my journey, I've looked back and I realize the meandering ways that I've found myself here, making a career change from technology consulting to becoming a funeral director, and ultimately now having a supply company and supporting funeral directors across the country. And so, I as part of that process, I've also done a lot of digging into myself and trying to learn more about who I am and what drives me, what holds me back. And so that all, really led me to Anne. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that spirit guides us where we need to be when we need to be there. And if you trust, then it manifests itself. So I'm very blessed to have started working with Anne several years ago. And so that, leads us here.
Yeah, I love it, Chris. Thank you for sharing a bit about yourself and introducing yourself. So it leads me to go a little deeper with what led you to seek spiritual guidance, or how that path started for you.
That's a very good question. So for me, I've realized in the last 5 or 6 years that I have been intuitive my entire life. There were things that happened when I was a child. I didn't understand. I didn't realize what it was trying to show me or tell me. And I didn't trust myself because I didn't know the difference. And so I was getting messages and I was being led in directions, and I didn't fully understand what that was. So as I got older, I became curious about some things. I grew up Catholic, a large French and Italian Catholic family. So, a small town here in Maine, and I grew up in a box. I really was, told how my life was supposed to be, what I was supposed to do, and what I wasn't supposed to do. And there was always something inside of me that was saying, "There's got to be more than this. This can't be it," because my life was not fulfilling. I did what people wanted me to do. I'm grateful for my experiences, but I went to college. I, got into business, got a job. I did what, my parents thought I should do, what my grandparents thought I should do. And there was always something that was just missing. So as time went on and as I got older and I had children of my own, I found myself very unfulfilled with my own businesses, just kind of going through the motions. And so, one of my clients and a friend of mine had gone and had a session with a medium. And so I was very curious. I had read books, so I went to meet with her, and that started me on a journey that really has brought me here. And over the years, I've met with different people. They've all, we have many teachers in life. And so I'm very blessed for the teachers that I've had, and I learned so much from each of them. And so I had a period of time where I sort of was floundering a bit, and I didn't have that guide, that spiritual advisor. And then, like I said, there's no coincidence. Spirit guides us where we need to be when we need to be there. And I was having dinner with a friend, and she had talked about this woman in York, Maine, and I just remember I peeked right up, and so I kind of tucked it away. And a couple weeks later, I was sitting at my desk, and I just felt the tap on the back of my head, and I was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, York, Maine. I've got to look her up." So I pulled up the website, and as soon as I saw her picture, she has a beautiful picture, and I locked right onto her eyes, and I thought, "I know her, and I'm going to call her right now." And so I did, and then Anne and I met, and it was as if I've known Anne for many lifetimes. We just have a connection that it really helped me disarm. It helped me be vulnerable and really start digging much deeper into myself and who I am, and open my eyes more spiritually. And it's been wonderful. She helped me understand manifesting and trusting myself. I mean, I started journaling with manifesting, and all of a sudden, everything I was journaling about was manifesting itself very quickly, and it was almost scary, which I think is kind of what held me back at points over the years. And so, now learning to trust myself and trust my intuition, and trust trust that I have the answers inside of me. It's been very powerful.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for just, sharing a bit of that history of what has brought you here. And I really honor the path of each of you and what that has looked like, because there is this common thread in working with all of you, is this sense of not feeling alone. Although life can be busy and chaotic, we feel so alone and isolated. And so, when you and I started working together, one of the things that was just incredible about the journey you're on, Chris, is you were so hungry for it. So the minute these perhaps ideas or philosophies or the channeling of manifesting and the work we would do together, it was like almost instant for you, that there wasn't a time to process it, though your soul, like the way that I can describe it is like your soul was just hungry and thirsty, like it was waiting for it, like it knew. And so one of the things I've witnessed in your journey, and I see this with other people I work with, is that it can't come fast enough, right? Then the more we know these things, the more we look at our lives presently and say, something's got to change, and I wish it would change tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's having the patience to say, okay, what is the process with this? Because a lot of times our lives are webbed and connected to other people that haven't sat in that session, that haven't gone through the aha moment of saying, something's got to shift, and this is my truth. So would you say that there was a moment for you that really started to connect, where you could line up with your truth of on this spiritual path through your spiritual eyes, however we want to define spirituality, which is different for all of us? But where did that start to shift? And do you remember a time that something just was the catalyst on this journey that you knew there was no going back?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and I'm so glad you asked me that. So the word that I can think of that keeps coming to mind, and I actually wrote it down earlier when I was listening to Josh and Chase talk. It's home. The word home. And so I have been hungry, and I'm the type of person that likes to dive in 100% with whatever I'm trying to do, and the feelings that I've gotten as I've been developing and finding my home has really been powerful to me. And one of our sessions that we had Ann and I back in the summer, I had said to her, I said, I feel like I'm stagnant. I feel like I'm blocked. I feel like I've gone as far as I can go right now. And the more the more you want things, the more you're trying to make things happen, the less they're going to happen. Right. It's just the law of the universe, it seems like. So I had said to her, I said, I'm not sure what's next for me. I know you have a Reiki class coming up. You have developing your intuitive guidance and all these different courses. And I said, I feel pulled to something, but I'm not sure what it is. And obviously, Anne helps us see those things and find the path. And so I signed up for the Reiki class, and it was honestly the most life-changing thing that I've done. I had no idea what to expect. I came in with zero expectations. I walked into the room that morning. There was 8 women plus me, if we include Anne, and which is not uncommon in the working in the spiritual world. And so we did a meditation, and I've never really thought of myself much as a meditator. I've tried, but I can't slow my mind because my mind's constantly going. And I was second to last that day, that morning. And so there was about 45 minutes or so, and I was meditating, and the sounds, and we had music in the background and drums, and I just remember sitting there, and it was dark. And one of the things that I didn't realize about myself is that part of the reason I've struggled with relationships is because I was looking for love, and I didn't really love myself, and that was profound for me. And my grandmother is one of my spirit guides, so that's how she manifests to me. And she appeared to me, and she told me that it wasn't her, it was me. She died when I was young, and shortly after I had that moment, and it was just overwhelming to me because it was right front and center. then I had a vision of all these people in front of me, and this male figure stood forward, and he looked at me and he just said, "Welcome home." And that, it makes me emotional now just thinking about it, because I'm like, that's just where I want to be. And when I'm home, when I know that I am in complete alignment with myself, my energy is high, my state is high, it's the ecstasy, right? It's completely euphoric. You cannot explain it. It is like you're like living in this alternate reality. You are completely in the moment. Nothing around you affects you, and anything is possible. And that's, I think that's probably the profound moment where it was like, okay, I'm now all in. And then, the second we showed up for Reiki 2, and Ross walks in the room, and I thought, oh, there's a male energy. This is incredible. And Anne just smiled at me when, she said that. And then, we all had a meeting, because we were all looking for other men. There's so many women, and
You want connection.
and it was like, I walked in not knowing other than Josh who was going to be here, and Ross walks in. I'm like, oh, hey, Ross, what's up? And now we're all connected. And it's like, once I just chose to dive in and say, this is the path I'm on. I can never go back to my old life. And I like Josh said, I am not the person. I wouldn't even recognize myself from 2 years ago.
That you sharing that and like listening to that moment that you really, heard it and you felt it again, you trusted yourself, right? Like you trusted yourself in a way where I think when we start to trust ourselves and we give ourselves permission to do that, it's like you cannot go back and live in that way, in that space, day in and day out. It becomes almost unbearable, because when we start to trust ourselves, it just feels so good. It feels so right, not based on what someone else is wanting us to do or validated by somebody else, but we validate ourselves. And isn't that what we want to teach our children? Isn't that what we want our partners to do? The people around us, our family. Trust yourself. Even if it's not my path or my truth, it's yours. So, Chris, on that note, adding on to that, what does it feel like then to truly trust yourself? What does that space feel like, if you could share?
Yeah, I mean, the two words that I can use is it feels free. It feels like I am not tethered by any of the physical, any outside forces, anybody's expectation of me, anybody's, wanting me to do things or how they feel. It just feels free. It's present, right? I'm just present with myself, and that to me, that's home. And when I'm there, I don't want to leave. If I could stay there all the time, I would absolutely live there. But we straddle two worlds, and we have to figure it out. And we take steps back. It's not always perfect. There are days when nothing is lining up, and I catch myself now, and I'll sit back and I'll laugh and I'll say, life happens for me. And that's really what it is. Life happens for us. So you have to trust.
Absolutely. Trust, and home equates to trust, and creating the home within yourself. And you can bring that home wherever you go. So
Exactly.
Chris, lastly, what advice would you give someone not sure what direction to take in their life, or knowing how to trust their path or themselves?
Sure. I think you have to learn to trust yourself, because the answers are inside of us, and we just have to trust that we can see them and hear them and feel them, and trust the process. Because if we fight the process, it seems miserable. And there can be so much joy when you step back, even in the hardships that we face as we're trying to grow and evolve. If you stop and celebrate some of the small wins, which it took me a long time to realize that I didn't celebrate those wins, your life is going to be so much more fulfilling and authentic. And like I said, it's going to be hard, but there's joy in the journey. The journey it's got rocks and boulders and mountains, but it's got beautiful scenic vistas, and nice sandy beaches with crystal blue water, and you just have to enjoy the sun.
I love that. And I love, the journey is the joy. The journey is learning to trust, and in between the trust of questioning and uncertainty is still knowing there's joy in between and on the other side of it. So Chris, thank you so much.
And I'm grateful because you've helped me in many ways to see all that and to feel it and appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm honored to be again on this journey with you as well, and to see everything you have to offer to others. And that reflection piece, it's important. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay. I would love to. There we go. Last but definitely not least, we want to introduce Ross. Ross, I'm so glad that you're here. And can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, Anne. First, thanks for getting us all together to begin with. I really, truly appreciate it. My name is Rosa Androchuk. Sure, with my wife Taylor and child MJ, who is literally the joy of our life in a lot of ways. I grew up on the seacoast, New Hampshire, and I was in the trades right out of high school, electrical license, and transitioned into a pharmaceutical company and did project management work for this particular corporate company. And in 2024, actually a month ago or a year ago, to further, me and my wife had made the decision. I'm going to kind of get it more into that entrepreneur role, into rental portfolios, potentially project management on the side, and just kind of see where my own journey would go. That being said, I had also had a really strong desire, a higher calling to spirit, which had been going on for years. But after being introduced to Anne, literally it was like a year ago, or in February, that door was blown open and gasoline was poured on the fire.
There's no other way to do it, really, right, Ross?
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes when I'm working with somebody for the first time and I know that they come in with a hesitation, or usually a loved one, your wife is amazing, Taylor. I love her. And I love that you're on this journey together, and there's always somebody that nudges us, whether we see it at the time or not. There's always a bigger reason, right? And so, as you say, the doors get blown open, gasoline pouring on it, there's no going back. It's that, sense of death and rebirth, like, okay, what are we making now? So tell me about the spiritual journey for you, and being on this journey for you. What has brought you to this place, or even a year ago? And I know Taylor introduced us, but what is it for you, Ross, that obviously there was a curiosity and something nudging you, even if you didn't know at the time, but can you bring us back to maybe what's brought you here?
Yeah. It really is that right now urge for more, urge for understanding, always having this knowing of something so much bigger than who we are. That's been inside of me for years. And going back to like the first time we actually met, I had a family member pass the previous year, and he had come through in our reading. And some of the information you were relaying was just so raw and authentic. And it gave me permission to just drop the barrier to have a true conversation with you. And it led little hints. It started with little hints with our conversation. And it was funny because you hinted at Reiki 1, and you told me to read the book Journey of Souls. And that kind of ties back into my uncle, who I had lost a year prior, and just kind of understanding that whole process with afterlife, and what that potentially looks like. And I read the book, and of course I signed up for Reiki 1. And upon completing Reiki 1, I was like, all right, well, we got to do Reiki 2. which then me and my wife had that conversation. She's like, you got to do the psychic intuitive guidance class now, which led to the mediumship course. So over the course of the year, over the past year, I've literally become a Reiki practitioner with you, taken multiple courses with psychic intuitive abilities, mediumship, and going even further now, looking into actually like shamanic journeying. And I just can't get enough of it. And it's really how spirit now communicates with me, and how they present those little hints, the breadcrumbs, to follow that journey.
Ross, your journey, and you showed us this picture of like, kicking the doors open and blowing things up with gasoline. As on the other side of that, I will see people come into my studio that I am just like, I say to spirit, like, can I kick the door open for them? Because I see it, right? Like there's just these flames coming off of you that I'm like, okay, here he goes. And you want to, I got to be gentle and be like, well, this really resonates, but you got to be ready. And your, the indication of spirit, as many people who work with me know that I work psychically. I work through mediumship of connecting spirit connections, in sessions that way. And one of the largest pieces of what I do and is my passion is intuitive guidance. So I can see things psychically and I can connect to spirit, but there's always a bigger story there. And it's about the person that I have the honor to sit across from in a session and really dig into that energy with them to see, why is this soul here? And it's an honor because as you came into the sessions and then stepped into all of the classes, it's almost like where's more for you? Where's more of this? Not only you're not, it's like you're not learning, you weren't learning, Ross, you were just simply remembering.
Discovering.
Right? Like you're just remembering something that your soul knows. And so I guess I would ask you, has there been a difficult aspect of this evolvement and this growing, and as we call this awakening for you, that's been difficult being in this human form, right? Get into this.
Yeah, I'd say shattering the ego. It is a full-time job. You're raised a certain way, not knowing how much of your upbringing can actually influence your process and your thought of breaking down subjects or just thinking, right, constructively. I completely have transformed where I don't recognize myself a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's just, it's an endless journey. That is it challenging, no doubt. Like I have my days, like you're just like, really? Why would I even respond the way I responded to that question? That was not me. And you feel at times removed from your body. And then that soul comes back to the vessel, right? And you're like, what was that all about? Like you're decompressing. You're like, that wasn't me. That was the ego. That was the person that was my upbringing that had anger and resentment and lack of validation at times. Like, and then you just come back to that home self and you're like, yeah, that's life. Like work through it.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think of our ego as the pesky tour guide we really don't want to follow. Like, here they come again. Can we go off the beaten path? Can we do our own thing? Can we trust ourselves? And that ego kind of shows up, and you bring up two emotions of the anger and resentment. And I think the more that we step into our presence and we trust ourselves, the more potent those lower energies and those feelings of anger and resentment really hit us, because it's not a space we want to be in, but boy, do we feel it. And boy, do we look back to the person that we were. And it doesn't mean that it ever ends for us, right? We are still navigating those feelings and the emotions. But I find, and let me ask you, Ross, when the anger and resentment comes up for yourself or others around you, do you find it difficult to stay there for a long period of time? Do you find yourself just witnessing it and being like, okay, what's my part in this, and how do I bring myself back to alignment?
Yeah. An older version, it would have taken a lot more time. There's times that, depending on what it is, it's a process. But that process comes with meditation, breath work, and really just recentering oneself. I think breath is ultimately magic at times, and you just got to process it and just work through it. And yeah.
Yeah. And, it's about patience, right? And I think it's just a reminder
Yes.
that we want it tomorrow, we want it yesterday. And also being patient with the ego parts of ourselves that have a really hard time letting go, and knowing that if we can do that for ourselves, then we give grace and patience for other people around us, especially if they're not in the same vibrational place or the path that we're on or the stuff that we're learning. We just have to give patience for somebody's level of comprehension and consciousness, right? Ross, one of the questions here is, what other influences have shaped where you are today on your path, and what has that felt like for you?
Yeah. Influences, I actually think of it in a sense of everyone and everything that has crossed my path has provided some form of influence, good and bad. But ultimately, I do have to say, my uncle was a tremendous amount in my life. Going back to just working through conversations and having conversations that you can truly trust the counterpart, knowing there is no judgment, no shame. It's really just trusting an individual where you can spill your guts out, have those difficult conversations with. That's truly influenced my journey tremendously. And I didn't even realize it at the time of most of those conversations with my uncle. It just seemed like an everyday conversation. But with reflection, you realize, wait a minute, there was a lot more in the making than I realized at the time.
And I'll let the audience know that your uncle, who is now in spirit, his, I want to say, influence on you in the most incredible way today seems to be somewhat of a guidepost for you, a true north compass that not only is there to be available, but it's as though he allows you to come home and trust yourself. And so,
yeah, completely.
Yeah. So I didn't know if you want to share anything more about that, with the audience, about that connection you have with your uncle today and how you are simply stepping into the Ross that is today, and perhaps your relationship with your uncle today and where he's at in spirit.
Yeah. I mean, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for him. And like I said, he provided me with so many tools to have constructive dialogue. And that dialogue, like I said, repeating himself with no shame, no guilt, allows you to have a listening ear for others now, which goes a long way. Yeah, he was a selfless man. I mean, he was very spiritual himself, more in terms of Christianity, but he traveled the world trying to, or doing his best to heal men and women with wounds and trauma that they've been carrying from, you can say, current life, past life, things to that nature. He was a special man.
Well, as you're sharing that, Ross, I can't help but feel that you are carrying that torch now to help others.
Yeah, and I kind of, that falls into the Reiki practitioner realm, and just really wanting to, it started, our journey kind of started with like healing oneself, right? But then it's evolved now to, I have the mentality of heal oneself. Let's heal the family inflicted trauma. Let's heal the generational inflicted trauma that we carry and that's passed on through generation to generation.
I love that, Ross, and the work that you're doing as a Reiki practitioner, and the compassion and healing you hold for others is just incredible. And to watch you offer that and continue to grow in the way that you'll reach others in that way is just a gift. So I want to say thank you for the work you're doing and will continue to do. So asking you around trust. So could you explain to us or share with us, how does it feel then to truly trust yourself, to be in that energy, in that space?
Powerful. It's amazing. Trusting your gut. I wish I would have known that my younger days. Really, truly just following your instincts, following your heart chakra, right? Your heart chakra is the true connection to the higher conscious, right? Just following your heart and your gut. There's a reason why you have that gut instinct. But sometimes that monkey mind gets in the way a lot. Got in my way quite a bit growing up. I like to force my way into things, and it's just not what the path is about. It's about that flow state.
It always is, and it's going to be there as a reminder for all of us. I don't think that ever ends. I just feel like we give it less airtime. That's the whole goal, is to give it a little less airtime, but it's always going to kind of be there. Just kind of showing itself to us. So thank you for sharing that. And the last question I have for you, Ross, is what advice would you give someone not sure what direction or path to take in their life, or knowing how to trust themselves?
Start small. If you have a calling, look into that calling a little bit. Whether it's a book or a podcast or a friend or an activity, just start small. Follow your gut. And I would also say something to kind of piggybacks off of what Chase had said, and it made me think when he said when you turn 100 years old. A lot of the things we stress over these days, in the moment, it's a big deal. But I think we always need to really ask ourselves, is this going to be a big deal tomorrow or next week or a year from now? Chances are it's not. So don't get so worked up in those situations. Don't let it affect you as an individual. Just be with it, do with what you can, and move forward.
Powerful. And it's something that, I could identify even, today. I think that we're constantly in a place of always looking in the mirror. And I always like to say, just stay humble, right? I say that to myself because there's so much more that I don't know, that we don't know. And I think if we can stay open to that, it's being willing to give ourselves the permission to fall, to take a wrong turn, to maybe learn how to trust ourselves when something that happened to us maybe made us question that. But Ross, thank you for sharing with the audience and with everybody here. And I'm honored, as always, as I am with all of you here. But Ross, I'm really honored to see the path you're on, and the healing and the work you're doing to help others. And I'm just so glad that you're here to share. And I think it's wrapping up and wanting to share with all of you being here today that I've always said this, that it takes a village. And one of the common themes I was seeing in a lot of my male clients is this need to connect. Yes, I can connect with each of you, but there's something much stronger and much more connected, bringing all of you together with this voice. And I really feel as though your voices are allowing other voices to speak. It's an honor to witness each of you and hold deep gratitude and compassion for the journey you're on and the way you continue to show up for this work and each other. Josh, Ross, Chase, Chris, I want to say thank you. Do any of you have anything you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.